All right, everyone, welcome back. So we are at part 2 of our talk on conceptual development. So now we're going to talk about physical properties of the world and reasoning about objects, including things like counting, cause and effect, and categorizing. So what do babies understand and perceive in these areas of conceptual development? So first of all, understanding physical properties of the world. What do infants know about physical laws of behaviors and objects? Are they born with this ability or is it learned? And how do we learn to reason about objects and understand cause and effect relationships and categorizations, which will come in the later slides. But starting here about physical properties, many experiments show evidence that infants between 3 to 9 months of age, sometimes earlier, they have an initial grasp of physical laws and laws of behaviors and objects. So 5 months olds, they expect liquid and sand-like substances to be pourable. And they were surprised when something that appeared to be liquid or sand-like plopped into a glass like an ice cube due to trick props. On the other end, they also expected solid substances to plop when transferred, and they were surprised when they ended up pouring like liquids. So we violated their expectations, and it shows that they actually do have expectations and understanding about the physical laws of the world. We also see this with the laws of gravity. So 4.5-month-olds looked longer at a block that appeared to be suspended in midair without any support, as opposed to a block being held and supported by a hand. This surprised them. It suggests that they have a basic understanding of laws of gravity as well. So pretty remarkable. We're looking at 4.5, 5 months old, 5 months of age, and already seem to have gained knowledge about physical properties of the world in their short few months on this earth. So what about reasoning about objects? Our first stop here is counting. So do babies have an understanding of quantity and counting? So one study that used mouse dolls used 4-month-olds, and these 4 months old, they observed the sequence of events at the top of this image we have here. So the sequence of events is first a mouse is placed on a stage, a blue screen comes up and covers the mouse. The second mouse is placed behind the screen in clear sight, and then the hand leaves empty. So then there's a couple outcomes that were shown to babies, a possible and an impossible event, going back to violation of expectations technique. So they actually showed surprise when the screen was removed and only one mouse remained, so the impossible event. Because again, they saw that a second mouse was added behind the screen. So when the screen was put down and revealed the objects remaining, there was only one. And this is surprising to these very young 4-month-old infants. It suggests that they remembered the presence of the first mouse hidden behind the screen. And they also mentally added the second mouse to expect to see 2 mice. Also, we found that infants tend to match across sensory modalities, match quantities. So 7-month-olds were studied and they were shown, or they heard a recording of 3 voices speaking. And they tended to look longer at a video that showed 3 faces than a video that only showed 2 faces. So they were kind of matching up the number of voices to the number of faces. Also suggests that a form of counting occurred. So this poses the question, has the brain evolved to include areas dedicated to processing numbers? Because we're seeing this pretty early on, 4-month-old and 7-month-olds. And it wouldn't be all that surprising because counting is a fundamental skill of the human species. So what about cause and effects? So does the understanding of cause and effect relationships come from experience or is it an innate capacity? So an experiment depicted causal and non-causal events on a screen for newborns. So a gray disc appears to bump into the second disc. Does the second disc move immediately or is it delayed? And we see a version of this here in this image, the launching versus the delay. So the idea is that Once the first disc hits the second one, it should move immediately upon the impact. But is there a delay? If so, babies notice this. Babies look significantly longer at the causal version of the event, meaning they perceive cause and effect relationships. And this suggests that this may be present at birth because these were newborns that were tested upon this. So they did look longer at the unexpected event that was non-causal, that was unexpected. Other research suggests that experience can have significant effects on understanding cause and effect. So perhaps it's a bit of both, nature and nurture, but it is very fascinating that even at birth, newborns look longer at causal events. Lastly, categorizing. So this is a more fun, colorful slide. So infants also seem to be able to categorize very early in life, particularly 3-month-olds. They have been shown pairs of pictures of different cats, for example, and they're shown these pictures repeatedly. So in trial 1, they're shown this pair, trial 2, they're shown this pair, trial 3, this pair, and then they have the test trial where you can see there's a cat and a dog. So after they're shown all these different pairs, they're shown this one, they actually look longer at the picture of the dog than the cat when they are shown this pair of images. This suggests that they formed a category for what they had repeatedly viewed, and the dog did not fit this category because, again, they previously viewed pairs of cats. So 3-month-old babies, very young, look longer at this dog. So they do seem to perceive or seem to form some sort of categories in their heads. Some research suggests that babies 4 to 6-month-olds categorize faces differently than other complex objects, going back to that idea that they prefer human faces over other things. But what about how they form categories? Do they rely on perceptual similarities, like in this case, how the objects look? You can see visually that these are cats, they have similar features visually. Also how they feel, how they sound. So do they rely on these perceptual similarities? Or can they categorize based on abstract features, like how objects function or behave? So interestingly, later on, around 9 to 11 months, research has found that these babies can categorize based on functional relations. Still pretty early, 9 to 11 months. So what was done is that an adult model would perform actions that were appropriate for an animal category or a vehicle category. For example, giving a toy dog a drink from a cup or turning a key in a toy car door. Then new items were placed near the props. So a bunny and a truck. So instead of a dog and a car, it's a bunny and a truck. So they're in the same categories, but they are different objects, animals versus vehicles. So when the infants were, these objects were placed in front of the infants, these new objects, they would actually be able to categorize based on functional relations. They would give a drink to the bunny, but not the truck. And they would use the key with the truck, but not the bunny. So this is pretty complex. It shows that they can rely on more complex abstract features to categorize objects as they get older. So it's no longer bound to just the visual, perceptual features, but even functional relations like vehicles to keys and animals to drinks. So very interesting stuff, at least to me. Maybe I'm a nerd for this stuff, but I hope you found that interesting too, just presenting some research out there that really shows the capabilities of infants very early on, in terms of how they reason about objects and what they understand about the physical properties of the world. So that's it for this video. We just have one more stop, attention and memory. But thank you for joining everyone, and I will see you there.